Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's the 26th of November, 2025. Gotta check. Make sure I'm right. Apologize. Scheduled the show a bit late. A little rough trying to get the start tonight, but we're running, so. I'm going to play a song. I'm not quite up to speed. The Stranding of the Firth. I'll find a link and put it in the description before the song is over. I'll be right back. Take care.
Come gather, good people, I'll sing ye a song of whales on the shoreline, laid heavy and wrong. The tide bore its burden, a sorrowful sight. The strandings o' the Firth in the dead o' the night. They came in their hundreds, the dolphin, the whale, driven to shallows with a sorrowful tale. The learned men muttered on nets and no noise, but the seas bear a tally that none can disguise. So order a half and a half at the bar. From Fukushima's waters, the fallout sails far. Clap hands on the table, let everyone ken. The strandings o' the Firth mark the folly o' men. They'll talk all the weather, they'll talk all the storm. They'll scribble their numbers to keep with the norm. But the count only rises, the carcasses show a reckoning carry wherever tides go. From Rasse to Moray, the tidings run grim. The porpoise and mink now drift at the brim. Yet silence in council halls buries the cost, for silver and power would sooner them lost. So order a half and a half at the bar. From Fukushima's waters, the fallout sails far. Clap hands on the table, let everyone ken. The strandings o' the Firth mark the folly o' men. And if ye should wander the shoreline at dawn, where once the great singers and dancers had gone, remember the silence, remember the sound. The strandings o' the Firth, where the warning is found. So order a half and a half at the bar. From Fukushima's waters, the fallout sails far. Clap hands on the table, let everyone ken. The strandings o' the Firth mark the folly o' men. So order a half and a half at the bar. From Fukushima's waters, the fallout sails far. Clap hands on the table, let everyone ken. The strandings o' the Firth mark the folly o' men.
Yeah, rock and roll, baby. Except it's not. It's such an awesome song. Such an important song. Such an important subject. What is this planet going to do in a few years? About 4 to 5 years will be no whales. That's a fact. Everything that's out there is emaciated. And if you go to my playlist, you'll see 52 videos. There's more than that there, but there's 52 videos of die-offs. And all the whales of every species are showing up emaciated worldwide. We're going to be faced. Looks like they're going to have their grid in by then. Everybody's digital ID worldwide. It's not going to work, though. right? They're rushing it, and so people are not in a position where they can't resist, even, and all trial runs like the COVID and 911 and all 400 plus terrorist attacks in the United States post 9/11 had FBI, CIA handlers, every single one of these guys. None of them could have afforded or had the capability or the knowledge or the skill to build the so-called improvised explosives or cause any kind of harm to the country, right? These were just to invoke Al-Qaeda, which used to be the Mujahideen, right? And then Russia went there and fought them for 10 years or something, and there was 10,000 left. They called themselves the Taliban. And then the Americans and the British, the coalitions all went there and fought them for 9 years. Millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, the same as the Russians. And there was just 400 of them left or something. They turned into 10,000 Boko Haram. And in Africa, they turned into 10,000 ISIS. In Syria and Libya, they turned into these 10,000. Always throughout history, there's been 10,000 terrorists, and they whittled away at them. Took them 10 years. He fired 96,000 rounds a day. It was 5 million rounds a month of just the dirty bombs, depleted uranium munitions from the soldiers on the ground, not counting the big ordnance and everything. And these countries are stronger and more hateful now. Fukushima worker risk radiation to feed their families. Well, certainly not nuclear scientists, that's for sure, is it? Fukushima, top scientist, Fukushima is the most terrifying situation I can imagine. So how come other scientists are not saying that? I've seen a paper that says bye-bye Japan and evacuate North America's west coast if the Reactor 4 goes, which is, the topic tonight is Reactor 4. After the quake and the rods are exposed. That was David Suzuki. He was hated by the nuclear industry for saying that. He had to withdraw his comments. Imagine that. And he could have quantified it. He could have showed the evidence for it. This is
3 out of the 4 plants were destroyed in the earthquake and in the tsunami. The 4th one has been so badly damaged that the fear is if there's another earthquake of a 7 or above, that building will go, and then all hell breaks loose. I have seen a paper which says that if, in fact, the 4th plant goes under an earthquake and those rods are exposed, it's bye-bye Japan, and everybody on the west coast of North America should evacuate. Now, if that isn't terrifying, I don't know what.
Well, something as equally terrifying is the media claiming they're on top of Reactor 4.
Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4.
That's a miracle. How did you do that? Because it looks like that. Hang on.
The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
Yeah.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Microphones don't work in that environment, by the way. Like you got a mask on that doesn't sound like that. Neither one of these are at the top of that building, but yet they're on television.
The decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
That's a senator's son, Seth Dorn, CBS.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
Yeah. Got to move you in the reactor instead of outside of it. Neither one of these people are at the top of the building. There's many more journalists that done that. Any idea why they might have done that? That's quite the con. Is that not quite the con? Here's Reactor 4. And these people in paper suits are going to go into a nuclear meltdown. They're nowhere near it. That's green screen. These are hard cases, to say the least. These are homeless and destitute, right there. We've got them doing green screen at the side. I'm just saying it to be rude. So that's allegedly Reactor 4 over there in the corner. So confusing. I'm going to zoom in on Reactor 4 for you now first. All right. You can actually see debris right there. I got better pictures that are going to come up. That's a very unusual picture to be able to see the debris right here. So this is the contraption, Reactor 4. We're going to definitely come back to that fella. And Reactor 3, well, there's nothing left of the buildings, but that'll make sense to you in a minute. That's Reactor 2, alleged what's left of it. And Reactor 1, they put the fuel pump was the first to go. They put a Kevlar sarcophagus over it. Something strange, isn't it? Yeah, there's 1,000 tanks. Look at it. Holy shit. You can see them all right there. The 1,000 tanks now, they're counting those small tanks that are going to show up on your screen. That's the bigger tanks back there in the background. I'll back up a little bit. These are small tanks. They counted all of them as individual, as equal to one of those big ones. We counted, we have a lot of pictures of that site, because I'm a bizarre pack rat when it comes to this stuff. That's most of the site right there. So there's 1,000 tanks there. Of course, most of them are invisible. Like the top of Reactor 4, it's invisible. These are magic people. Imagine that. So this is original footage. There is no fuel pool. Reactor 4. And they built this contraption. This is empty, right? And you see those white panels? That's what they are. They're panels. They're laid there by gravity fed. This was built off-site. There's the stump of Reactor 4. Should those journalists go, the producers and the journalists, but the producers, should there be a penalty for pretending they're in a building that doesn't even exist? Should there be a repercussion? Should they at least lose their journalism degree? Now they done the same thing for Reactor 3. PI made her pretending in 2021 that they're on top of the building to your left. Everything is perfect. Look at it. Doesn't get much more perfect than that. Such a strange story. Just bear with me. So you want to see this zoom in of Reactor 4 net quality anywhere else on the planet? And you can see Reactor 4 doesn't quite look as pristine as they're claiming, right? And so here you can see fairly close to Reactor 4. So they built this contraption offsite, assembled it there, and then claimed that they were actually in the building. But when you actually zoom in, and you won't see these pictures anywhere else, unfortunately, when you zoom in the contraption they put there, you can see you're almost at ground level, and the building is completely destroyed. Yeah, it's pretty slow today. I don't know if that's the appropriate word, slow. Blech. All day, all night. There wasn't going to be a show tonight. But 25 minutes before 10 o'clock, I was like, get your punk bitch ass up. Do a show, you freak. There's more people on this planet besides you, you selfish bastard. That's what I was saying to myself to get myself up. Come do a show an hour ago. Get up, you miserable bastard. Okay, fucker, leave me alone. You know the feeling, right? Yeah. But that's just a long time. Sometimes it's just like, ugh. Why ain't all these people swinging? Okay, so that's Reactor 4. It looks pretty good. It's not bad. Come on, use your imagination. This is a nuclear building that had 8 reactor cores at the top of the building, plus the reactor core was actually in the fuel, 1/3 of it. They were doing maintenance. So if they were doing maintenance, 1/3 of the reactor would have came out. We don't know if it was out at that time or not, but this is what they would have took out. And then they would have put fresh fuel in there and left 2/3 of it in there. Or it depends, right? These were getting older reactors, so they're definitely getting a lot more brittle. I don't know what to believe. I don't know if I should believe this picture or that picture. Both of them official pictures. I don't know what to do. Do you know what to do? I don't know what to do. I miss the sounds of birds on my roof in the morning, pissing me off, waking me up. Get off my fucking roof. You want to see this picture anywhere else? Or this picture? Look at the debris from the explosions down on the ground or up on the roof of that small support building. And allegedly there's people at the top of the building. Let me zoom in on that. I don't know if I never noticed that one before. I've noticed a lot of that, but it's not true. You're not on top of a nuclear meltdown. Yeah. Allegedly there's 2 guys up there. Look at that. Like, you're not above nuclear meltdowns in paper suits, okay? It doesn't work that way. Dirty bastards, eh? Right alongside of Reactor 3 on top of that. Reactor 3 will kill you just from the neutron bombardment from right there. So they built this contraption off-site and they assembled it with cranes. So remember, this is the picture where you can see it doesn't physically touch the buildings. It can't, right, because the building is so fragile. You're almost at ground level. The fuel pool is about 125, 30 feet above it. Like, there's no way your organs melt, say, at about 3 sieverts. There's multiple thousands of sieverts anywhere you stood there. So you're going to lose your organs right away. The illusion is to make you think that somebody is able. Now, if they did send people in there for pictures, and don't think for a second they didn't do stuff like that, holy shit, this industry's legacy of cruelty has no limits. It really doesn't. That's what makes it such a strange industry. It's like they're all fixated upon doing experiments, cruel experiments on humanity, particularly in the hospitals. I thought it was right here. Why wouldn't it? Oh, there it is, yeah. So what's unique about this is they're hitting him with high radiation. They've done this a lot. Yeah, hold still. Stop moving. All right. Walk over there and drop dead. So he was hit with so much radiation, he left an imprint of him on the wall. Like the people that were doing it absolutely knew that guy was going to die within a few minutes. Dana. Anything else there? So when you look at the building, the top of the building is supposed to be where all those scientists were hanging out and journalists and getting fuel out of the pool and that routine. So when you look at the building like this, do you think the top of the building actually exists? Right, you haven't got the panels over that part up there. Once you put the panels over that, then everything becomes perfect. Wow, it's gorgeous. Right, then it looks like this. Even though it looks like that. Right, you haven't got the panel. They only got two panels. They're done with the cranes. Cranes bring it in, lay it there, and it hangs by gravity. You can't survive there. Hence the reason it's curious that journalists are saying they're at the top of the building that doesn't even exist. And as you can see, this building, the top of the building where the journalists claim they're to, they haven't got the panels around it. They'll put panels around it. There's probably no roof on it. And then journalists in the United States, where there's 70 identical reactors, are saying, here we are at Reactor 4. That's the official picture. In that spot up there. Of a building that doesn't touch another building. So that was the public relation. So this is what it looks like at the top of the building, but this is what the world's seeing on TV. So should the producers who made that bizarre claim at least hold them accountable? You can't hold the nuclear industry accountable. At least you can hold them accountable. Does that make sense? And the journalists should be in jail too. Well, I mean, you know. Just saying. So that's a single panel. And that's laid there with gravity, but a remote-controlled crane. Everything's about an illusion. So you see that elevator lift over there, where people would normally be standing up into? That's only there to get pictures. It's pretty bizarre story, see? And so no matter how much evidence I show you, it's still... So the top of that building, look at it. That's above the fuel pool. Does anybody think that that's what it looks like up there? Because that's what they're trying to convince you. They're saying at the top of it, in the middle of nowhere, of a destroyed building that doesn't even exist anymore. That's the original footage. Right, this pump truck, the world's biggest cement pump truck, was outfitted with a hose. In other words, they clamped the hose onto it. And then that sprayed water down on the building. Now, the building needs 1 million gallons a minute. That can do about 200 tons a day or something. So the reactors need 4,500 tons a day, or per minute. So this does 200 tons a day. The reactors need 4,500 tons a minute. They need 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks of water with 1,000 liters in each of them of water to go through the reactors each day to boil that water to produce steam to turn the turbines to power 1 million homes and businesses. And so that water is just meant for apartment fire or something like that, that kind of application, right? That was only, it showed up long after the reactors blew up and lost their inventories. This was the evidence of any nuclear scientist looked at that Well, anybody on the planet, if you hold that picture up, say that's what it looks like at the top of this building, they're not going to entertain that thought. Now, where did it go? Well, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags, not in 14 prefectures, but in Fukushima prefecture. What you see in there is 14 prefectures highlighted. The food was banned by 55 countries because it just wasn't Fukushima. Canada was not one of them. In Britain, the last thing Boris Johnson done was lift restrictions. 3 years before that, he removed restrictions on baby food and cereal. Who eats the most cereal? It's children, right? Boris Johnson removed baby food and cereal restrictions from the nuclear wasteland from ground zero 3 years before he removed it for the rest of the population, which is what he was doing there when he was shaking hands with the bizarre creature. And so officially Reactor 4, this never happened. Everything is perfect. These are nuclear meltdowns. So they said, well, let's strip the building down to the bones. Let me get a better picture for you. We got Arnie Gunners and Helena Caldicott will make a special guest appearance coming up here in a bit. So on top of that building over there, it looks like this. I can't wrap my mind around that. I'm sorry, but I refuse to accept that. I still have a few critical thinking skill left in my little tiny head, I hope. So inside of that, it looks like the building to your left. That's some serious voodoo there, mister. But it doesn't hurt to see these official pictures, right? Everything I'm showing you, by the way, is official pictures. Despite the fact that they're saying none of this has happened since August 24th, 2023. The UN and its little lapdogs, little weirdos, the IAEA, UNSCLEAR, ERPA, the IPRC, are saying this never happened. That everything was good. They got all the fuel out of it, thank goodness. And this basically never happened. So they put this contraption, that's the final contraption over Reactor 4. And here's another angle of it. And here's the site. Here's 1,000 tanks. Here's the rest of the site. Look. 1,000 tanks is the fantasy. Everything goes straight into the ocean. This is allegedly the International Atomic Energy Agency coming back from a nuclear meltdown in a paper suit. Has anybody got any concept of how bizarre that this statement actually is? This is homeless and destitute, and Buddy's carrying that harness, not wearing it. What are you going to do at a nuclear meltdown as a human? Now, behind his head, you can see, they're underground, so you can see how there's nothing left of the building. It's destroyed. The explosion pushes everything below it apart, and then ejects everything above it. And in this case, the temperatures, this was an incredible event. Now, we have no footage of Reactor 4 exploding. We have footage of Reactor 1 on one side of it and Reactor 3 alongside of it exploding. But we don't have a picture of Reactor 4 exploding. So the illusion is, here they are, they're going coffee break or something. And so in this picture, you can actually see there's nothing left of the building. And you can see the contraption they used to spellbind, to cast a voodoo, to cast a curse on humanity. And we all forget so easily. So here's the whole site. Do you see 1,000 tanks there? Of course you don't. This is an interesting picture. So this reactor 4 was getting, was changing fuel. So 1/3 of the fuel was taken out. There's the reactor core. There's the top of the reactor core, which with the lid, it was off of that. This would have been way up at the top of the building. When you're looking at the rubble behind me, you have to appreciate that that's what it's like inside of there too. And you can see that the steel plates they put all over the top of it. That chummy looking machine you're looking at right here, that's remote controlled by cables, pneumatic controlled. So when you look at this rubble, that's to give you confidence that it's that's remotely like the picture to your left. So when you look at the four sides of that reactor, I hope you do anyway, when you're looking at the four sides of it, here's another shot of reactor 4. It's right here. And you can see reactor 3 right alongside of it. Reactor 2 is the gray one, and you can see 2 written on it. And the yellow cream color one with the white roof is reactor 1. That lost its fuel pool on day 2. And that's a Kevlar sarcophagus they put around it for 5 years. They took it off after 5 years. So reactor 4, like this is a 190-foot, 65-meter, 19-story buildings. And see the emissions coming from the pole? The whole story is crazy, right? Because this is quite a long time later. Everything was gone. If the water's not circulating, and so this is another picture, another angle of the building, the original footage. You can see all the debris. There really isn't anything left, right? And any engineer knows right to the ground this is puked out, it's entire. And that side you're looking at there is that side over there. Is that side right here. That's the same side as right here. Right to over there. Let me just go over there and make sure there's no way to misunderstand it. Because I'm pretty confusing sometimes. So that side there is this side here. I certainly can't tell the difference. Can you tell the difference? Dan, I can't tell the difference. Stop it. Yeah, a bit worn out. That's okay. I'll manage. So order up and I did die. There you go. I don't see anything left of the building, right? So when, just let me figure this out. So that's the lower part of the reactor. That's the upper part of the reactor. That's the cover was on the reactor. That hole there is the elevator where they would, at the top of the building. Oh, crap. Hang on. Way up here, where I'm to, that's where the fuel pool would be. And when you transfer in fuel, you would lower down this elevator shaft. It's not an elevator per se, conventional word elevator. It's a shaft where they had special cranes above it that would lower it. And that's when you see the cranes in some of these pictures. Let me find it for you. Not that picture. You can see cranes. I'll find it for you very quick here. Shouldn't use the word quick, Dana. Not a very appropriate word to be using around here. But you can kind of see it in that picture. Wait, now, here we go. Yeah, that's the elevator shaft. The fuel pools are at the top of the building. As you can see, there's no top to the building. There's no building. There's the stump. And look at the debris in the bottom floor. Hopefully, this gives you some context to the actual guts left of the building. So you can see you can imagine how big of an explosion it must have been. I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go disappear in the back there. Hang on. Hey, everybody! I'm here at Reactor 4. It's a bad smell here. Somebody got a flashlight. Can't breathe in here. Ugh. What is this metallic taste? I'm here. Anybody say hey? I'm in Reactor 4. Is that you, Seth Dorn? Yeah, that's me, Dana. Mom, Dana's being a dork. Dana, stop being a dork. I'm a dork. I was once a dork like you, Dana. Don't feel bad. Just keep it rolling there. So there's nothing left of the dork. I mean, the building. So how the hell did he get it to look so nice? Well, he didn't. The journalist went to another reactor in the United States. Has 70 identical boiling water 1 reactors, right? Identical. The fuel pools, the buildings, the age even for the majority of them were very, very similar. They just went there and shot the video and claimed they were at the top of Fukushima. Should the people allowed that go to jail? Should the journalists that pretended they were at Fukushima go to jail? Arnie Gunnarsson, he made the fuel assemblies, or the racks for the fuel assemblies for 73 identical fuel pools. And he refused to tell you that it looks like this. So if Arnie doesn't know who made the racks for the fuel assemblies, Fairwinds and his wife, shouldn't they go to jail for doing what they done? It's was Reactor 4. So the trucks were set up just to lull the world into complacency. Oh, they're doing something. They look at them. They're stoic. They went right into a nuclear meltdown, ran up and kissed the wall, took a selfie, and went home, took the children out to the fair and took the Wayfair dancing all night, Dana. They did not. That's Reactor 1. Well, it was. That lost its fuel pool right away, the entire inventories. These are magic pictures. So this particular view, you can appreciate, no matter who you are, you don't have to be an architect or an engineer, you can appreciate that the fuel pools are gone. The building is gone. The building is completely destroyed, right down to the ground. I hope you can, anyway. And when you zoom in, you can see just everything is shredded. And every nuclear scientist on the planet seen that picture said, well, the fuel pools are gone, reactor cores are gone. And then their boss said, stop saying that out loud. You'll scare the sheep. And they're not cowards like us. The tall, skinny stacks you see are for venting the fuel pools, which have up to 8 or more reactor cores in them, splitting atoms. Think about how evil that is on its own merit. So Reactor 4, you can see the debris on the roof there. Same thing for Reactor 3. I mean, reactor 3 had 9 reactor cores, one in the reactor running, full capacity of plutonium mixed oxide reactor. And the building ejected the reactor cores and the fuel pools right out of the building on camera. Reactor 4 would have done the same thing. This building would have done the same thing. So what's incredible is that, see all the debris on the roof and the stuff there? That's still there, right? It's still there. I showed you those pictures earlier where they put the contraption on it, and that stuff was still sitting there. Reactor 3 is interesting because there's blatantly nothing left. It's blatant. But yet, no, that never happened either. Since 2023, since IAEA, Taiwan, China, South Korea, Japan, International Atomic Energy Agency, all conspired to manipulate the Asian, which is, 6 billion people. Well, this is the greatest hoax ever. Why would they do that? If it was like a banana and a potato chip, walking in the sunshine, why would they go through these extremes? I have videos where I got in front of a green screen and a paper suit and a white hat and stuff, and then I pretended I was on top of the building walking, and then boom, I dropped dead, right? So what's really interesting is you can see the damage, you can see the debris on the roof, the debris on the ground behind it, right? Because everything was done by remote control. There's no nuclear scientists were hurt during the making of these videos. Should the producers who set up this hoax of journalists being on top of...
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, leading to the country's worst nuclear disaster.
So look at the debris on top of the buildings. And you can see the contraption is up above it. You can look into the interior of the building. It's a complete mess, right? See what it's like below it, but imagine inside of it. It looks like that, to the right. When you zoom in on the building, now you're starting to appreciate. Oh, it's not doing it. These are old pictures because remember, this is almost 15 years ago. It's almost 15 years. We're still going strong. Well, some of us not going so strong anymore. I'll be probably better tomorrow. I'm determined to get 5 shows in this week. If it kills me, I don't give a shit. I don't care. Day 15 of calisthenics and saunas and red light therapy and thinking positive and getting myself in shape to take on the nuclear industry for another 1,000 years. By leaving just a massive amount of documentation that can't be denied. We'll get them one way or another, that's for sure. So you see all the debris down there alongside of Reactor 4? I don't know what I got done there. Hang on. crap, I got a whack of Reactor 4. I got so many Reactor 4 folders. Let's look at this for a second. So this is one of my masterpieces here I put together over 12 years ago. Oh my God. So what they done was they put these contraptions over it. So let me switch gears here to see if there's going to be a big difference. On this screen, yeah, that's a big difference actually. I got to figure out why it does that. So when you see all the debris here, that's not the limits, right? There's nothing there. See Reactor 3 over there is all the debris below it. Well, underneath that, these contraptions, they built them around these structures. They don't physically touch these structures, right? They built a foundation around it that was built. Everything was built off-site and then assembled by remote-controlled cranes. So when you look at the tops of the support buildings, support structures around Reactor 4, you look in the guts of Reactor 4, like why is there a hole down there? Nobody's going in there. Maybe that's that they got a shelter built there from radiation. They did have homeless deer working on the ground. But you don't get up there and walk around. It doesn't work that way. You only need like a piece of highly radioactive material, which is everywhere, say as big as between my two fingers. And you walk past that, that's a lethal dose. Your organs will start melting. In that environment, your organs will melt within a few minutes. So they might swing somebody in on a crane, some homeless people on a crane who's already been highly irradiated, are dying. And they'll swing them in on a crane, and then they'll get their picture. They're cruel enough by far to do that. And it accounts for some of the things we've seen, because there's no consistency. There's nothing a human can do there, so why was there a human there? There's no way a human can survive in those pictures. Why was there a human put in there? You got to appreciate the bigger picture of what this industry has done. These are all Reactor 4 pictures. And inside of that mess, it looks like this. So it's so confusing, right? It's the most confusing thing in the world. Mentally handicapped are working at Fukushima plant after the meltdown. Often given worse radiation suits than regular employees. Mentally handicapped. The mentally disabled are working at Fukushima. Many men are forced to go to the plant. The homeless are treated like disposable people. Even Forbes, disgusting Forbes, pro-nuclear scum Forbes says this is outrageous. Homeless people are being sold to companies and put to work on Fukushima radiation. Government-funded shelters supplying gangsters with workers. UN official astounded that the homeless are taken to work in Fukushima ready to die. At the end of the month, they got no money at all. They're averaging around $11 take home a day. They were located over 1,000 EU dollars per person per day, but it's stolen because the only people that goes there are the destitute and the victims of society, the homeless. And we covered that. One of the headlines you started off with tonight was, if you read that, you'll learn all of that very quick. Interview in Fukushima, a lot of police are dead, but it is not reported. There was over 300 police officers died of kidney failure. This is an absolute monster, a sadistic monster, who for kicks kills children with radiation and chemo.
So, for example, coming here, I would have got a dose of 0.07 millisieverts on the flight. And I actually went round Fukushima Daiichi on Wednesday, and the dose that I had going around the site, so very close to where the reactors are, it was 0.01 and probably lower, but that's the lowest it could actually read. So I got more of a dose flying here, and we'll get a dose tomorrow when I fly home. than I would have done from being in Fukushima.
She got a bigger dose than being right by the reactors on an airplane, she said. She's a professor, so you imagine how lethal her students are. She radiates children. In some of her interviews, she talks about how parents were crying because she was about to radiate them, and then she said, okay, well, let's just use chemo. And you can see she was, if the mother didn't keep crying, she would have just killed the child with radiation, like they've done to everybody else's, every species, children worldwide with radioactive fallout. So when you're looking at Reactor 3 and Reactor 4, they tell you the story right away. So when you look at Reactor 1 and 2, it's hard to appreciate. They're the same, but they are. Look at all the debris here. Look at all the debris underneath it there. All they've done was use remote control cranes to trim off the top pieces, and then they put a contraption around it and pretended that they were at the top of the building. Because what he's supposed to do, it's a nuclear meltdown. Anti-nuclear activist, she actually wrote 14 plus books, anti-nuclear books. Dr. Helen Caldicott said during the crisis that if Unit 4 collapsed, during the crisis, this is 2015, she was going to move her family from Boston to the southern hemisphere. She was going to use her family. That evil old hag got children. That's the scariest crap I've ever heard. Oh, pony. Yeah, giddy up, pony. This is Helen talking about Reactor 4. Now, I put pictures over there so you can see the building she's actually talking about, what it really looked like.
Building 4 is also similarly fragile, and it's got a huge cooling pool on top with all its fuel rods, but they have been removing them. And it's been a very delicate procedure, and they've removed almost all. So if that collapsed now, I think it would probably be okay.
If that collapsed, well, the building didn't even exist in 2011, so why would it exist in 2015? She done that interview, that's with the Talking Stick TV. She done that interview hundreds of times, by the way. She's being asked, because the official story back then, this was the only person I know that actually asked her surge report. He said, does Fukushima actually look like the building to the left? Now, his video and pictures is to the top center. I put that picture, these pictures to the right and the left. That's what it actually looked like. She was asked, does it look like this or is it like that over there?
Let me ask you this. You said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. How close are we to that?
Who knows? Who knows if there's going to be an earthquake greater than 7 that'll disassemble Building 4 and maybe Building 3. And that's another terrible thing, because Building 3, if that collapses onto its corium of molten lava, huge amounts of radiation will be released. So I don't know. They say it's an act of God. I don't believe in God, but who knows? We can't predict, except to say that there are many earthquakes in this area all the time, and Japan is an earthquake-ridden island, and we don't know.
Do you think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the national news media here in the United States from ABC News and others that take video cameras in, saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is said to have begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion. There are many out there, like Hattrick Penry. I sent you a PDF document, a 445-page PDF document called Plumegate. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at that. But there are many that have looked at the Freedom of Information Act documents.
I've read it.
Okay, what's your take? Can we believe anything coming out of Japan, out of TEPCO, or out of the American news media?
Yes, and I think Patrick Hendrick goes too far, and I don't agree with some of the stuff he says. You've got to be really up to date with your facts and totally. The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine, but that doesn't mean a thing. They're doing a very, very, very tricky operation which could lead to disaster. On the other hand, the Japanese media is being controlled now because the government of...
So you got to be very, very up to date on what? The building doesn't exist or exists. Does it look like that or does it look like this? And her phone was breaking up. Well, at the top of Reactor 4, this is Frank von Hippel. On the 16th, day 5 of Fukushima in 2011, they were getting worried because they knew the fuel pools were gone, and so they brought on a professor and asked him how many reactor cores would be or could be at the top of Reactor 4 in particular. All the buildings are the same. So if it's F4, it's the same for every other one.
If, in terms of what we know about the capacity, about how many fuel rods would likely be inside that reactor, what sort of quantity are we talking about radioactivity?
I've heard different numbers ranging from 2 to 15 reactor cores worth. No, 2 to about 8 reactor cores worth.
So if it can't be controlled, that's worst case scenario, 8 reactors worth of radioactivity.
Right.
And it would be released into the atmosphere.
Radioactivity. By the way, the fact that this has happened at unit number 4 is understandable and is consistent with the theory that it really did dry out because the fuel from the unit number 4 was most recently discharged.
Okay.
And therefore was the hottest, and therefore the water would have boiled off more rapidly.
Yeah, except for you know, like the pictures that were originally released was this picture here. So Frank would have known if he's seen the picture, but apparently he didn't. He read the memo, not looked at the picture. Like every nuclear plant needs 2 gas, oil, and coal plants to power its enormous consumption each day. This is a video of Arnie Gunnarsson. Arnie built the assemblies for the racks for the assemblies for 73 identical fuel pools.
The Unit 4 was damaged twice. It was damaged by all of the earthquakes that occurred, and it was also damaged by a series of explosions over the first week or two of the accident. So the building is structurally weakened. Now, Tokyo Electric's acknowledged that. They went in May and June of last year. This is more than a year ago, and put an enormous number of extra structural supports directly under the fuel pool to keep the bottom of the pool from breaking through.
How do you get to the bottom of the fuel pool when the fuel pool is long gone? So the 2 red depictions up there are the fuel pools. So Arnie's saying that they went underneath the fuel pool. You can see this picture 2013 or 2012. They got her gutted. These are all remote control. They're starting to build a foundation for the cover. The story's so crazy, right? They were worried that people were going to figure it out, so they bought the media. They already owned the universities, but they didn't need to. People didn't know the difference, right? This big elaborate cover-up. Tokyo should no longer be inhabited. Everyone here is a victim of Fukushima. People truly suffering, bleeding under the skin, hemorrhaging, urinary hemorrhaging. Children's blood tests started changing. There was a lot of people trying to warn us, but the media, the majority of the media, was slowly replaced with anybody with a conscience was replaced. And in Tokyo, up to 2,000 grains inhaled in a cubic meter of air. Radioactive pollen. 2,000 grains inhaled. Not counting what's in the cubic meter of air, but anybody who stood there is inhaling 2,000 grains of radioactive pollen, which will stick. And the problem is the material from reactors is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. And the harm caused by the nuclear disaster is greater than for any work of man. Radiation, top expert, radiation like explosions going off in your cells, blowing holes in your DNA. And your body can't repair that. Think about a power plant breaking down. So concerned half of Japan to be covered in nuclear waste. 60 and older should be prepared to die at Fukushima. 60, well, not scientists or academics or nuclear power plant employees or anything like that, but everybody else in the country. The air, high levels of radioactivity found extensively. Japan says the air 150 kilometers from Fukushima plant is as radioactive as areas close to the meltdowns. Surges in airborne radioactive releases have gone on for almost this was 2014 for 4 years. And so I have a new number in case people are not around regularly. 709-740-4076. 709 is the number is on the screen. 740-4076 if you want to call into these live shows or call me. That's the number you're going to have to use from now on. My apologies for not being able to defend myself in the nuclear industry. We're doing the best we can, right? Surges in airborne radioactive releases have gone on for years at Fukushima, exceeded 25,000 times normal level. Well, it's way worse than that, unfortunately. Radiation alarms sound for hours at the plant. You see the ambulance was going there 10 times a day. Children with over 11 atoms a kilogram of cesium start to see heart problems. This is such a tiny amount, right? You can't perceive that much. And now the numbers we're talking about are, so everybody on the planet is in real trouble from here on out. Well, we have been for 80 years of the emissions from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide, 24 hours a day. But we're in real trouble because we contaminated the water and the food and the air and structures and your clothing and your hair. It's a bummer. But this is how we have to deal with it. We can't keep pretending it's not happening. We can't keep doing that. Like, we got to deal with this. So at some point we're going to. Photographer X-ray-like image shows how radioactivity is spread throughout the bodies of Fukushima wildlife. It's the same thing with the plants. So they can actually quantify the radiation fallout, not its entire capacity. Because you can't think of radiation as, well, you can, you have to, certainly as a physical thing, physical atoms. But it's hard to comprehend that an atom can be dangerous because you put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, but you can't see it. It's hard to perceive one of them could cause or could trigger an autoimmune disease in your body or cancers and stuff like that. But it certainly can. And so the X-rays don't quite do it. See, X-ray-like images, but each one of these particles you're seeing, that's what you're seeing. They're the little dots. That's radiation damage, radiation isotopes in the species. And that's pulsing energy almost at the speed of light in every direction. So think of how many people hate getting needles? So imagine you go to the doctor and the doctor said, we have this new treatment. We're going to stick a needle in you, and every second it's gonna pump in our version of a cure. It's going to do that every second, 60 times a second, 60 times a minute, 1,440 minutes a day, every day. That's what it's going to do. But that's what radiation is doing. It's pulsing a poison to everything we're replicating cells in every direction, every second. And the amount we're talking about it's unbelievable how much we're actually talking about. And like there's 1,000 fuel pools. Each fuel pool will produce a plume if the fuel pool is empty. You put 1/3 of a reactor core in it after the first 12, 14 months of operations of a brand new nuclear plant. That fuel pool, forever now, because there's no containment, is splitting atoms instead of for 300,000 homes. It's splitting atoms that are going up tall, skinny stacks, and is released into the environment to hunt us down and damage us every second for the rest of our lives when it comes in proximity to us. So if you cut your finger, your body repairs it in a few days or 4 or 5 days, right? And then your body goes back to normal. With radiation, your body can't repair it. It tries. It sends the resources from all your joints and your spleen, white blood cells, try to mitigate it, but it can't. It can't keep up with it because radiation is different. It's insidious. And they knew this back in the day where they said not a single atom will get off our site. That was the original promise for the charters to operate those businesses back in the original days. So it's not just the insects, it's every branch, every tree, like congenital malformations, except it's not in humans, it's in every other species. Well, it is in humans, but now it's in every other species too. It's not just humans, it's all 8+ million species. So 35.8% of the Fukushima children have thyroid tumors. These are thyroid tumors. These are cancers of 2 centimeters. But the thyroid gland is only 2 centimeters of a child, 3 by 5 for an adult. So even a 2 centimeter tumor, which is a pretty big tumor, on a thyroid gland, which is regulating the functions of your body by producing hormones, and now it's using man-made elements instead of natural elements, which is what it's designed for. It's using an anthropogenic man-made element that is very catastrophic as a regulatory function of their development or their bodies. And this is going to be true for all the species. And so before Fukushima, the numbers were 1 or 2 per million children would have thyroid tumors, because they have 54 nuclear plants, reactors rather, in the country. So 35.8% post-Fukushima, and those numbers have went up, is 358,000 out of a million when you scale it up. Now they claim that it was benign. Oh, well, now we're going to stop. It's going to be an epidemic because, there's going to be tumors, but it'll be okay. All these people, professionals that came out, the head of the Fukushima Prefectural Health Division said, if you smile, radiation fallout can't hurt you. So 13,646 out of 38,200 children, when it used to be 1 in a million, is an event. That's a catastrophic event. And you can't have that kind of statistic without... they're not just producing radioactive hormones for their entire development and the rest of their lives, which is madness to even say something like that, but they're also producing radioactive stem cells because their bones are going to be saturated. You can't have just gamma, which is what we're talking about here. Fukushima plume model showed 1 million atoms. A Becquerel is a pulse of energy, and in order for that Becquerel to take place, it needs a physical isotope, anthropogenic man-made isotope, to make that happen. And so for layman's terms for people, so you can envision what we're talking about. We're talking about you need 1 million atoms per square meter, and they're only acknowledging xenon-133. There would have been similar amount to 135 xenon, for instance, and all the other isotopes. But see, they can find that particular isotope, right? And then you can do a mathematical extraction, kind of, to figure out what other isotopes would have been in that same sample and what the quantity of them was, right? That's how they do it, but they don't release that information very often. Like there's 10 times more for every 131 iodine, which is nasty, on your thyroid glands and your pituitary glands, your adrenaline glands, and by proxy the functions of your body forever and ever. There's 10 times more iodine 132, 30 times more iodine 133, 31 times more iodine 129. Professor, I couldn't help feeling pity for the tree. X-ray-like images show the spread of radioactivity equivalent of miscarriages, stillbirth, congenital malformations. And you can see, lots of times you'll see the Tokyo University doctor and their names will be there. All of these were just aggregate of stories that we're reporting originally, right? Nuclear industry tried to bury the truth. Berkeley experts, University of California, Berkeley, experts told the public there is no plume. There was endless plumes, unfortunately, of all the different types of isotopes. Cesium remained dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor. But the Fisher story is nothing got out, and they started dumping treated water, which allegedly had nothing on tritium in it. And we have thousands of stories, the original stories, because that's the story. And none of them, well, some of them did mention tritium, but that was just because there was so much radiation and all the water was tritiated. Because there was so much radioactive fallout, everything was tritiated. Fukushima radiation is still circling the globe. It's a continuous plume circling the entire planet. And the levels consistently rise and fall in a 30-day cycle. That's so important. Just let me give you one example of that. So, well, there's another way to look at it. So there's a plume covering the whole planet, right? That's what they're talking about. This is a Neptunium-239 plume. So when they're talking about the Fukushima radiation still circling the globe and the levels are consistently rise and fall in a 40-day cycle. Because the plume is there's different elements in the radioantipagetic man-made material in the plume, and they decay at a different ratio. And so this plume starts off as Neptunium-239, and every 2.5 days for 10 times, it decays to Plutonium-239. So you have these different energies in the plume. So when they're talking about the levels consistently rise and fall in a 40-day cycle, first off, the plumes never stop coming out even today. And the whole country's producing plumes because you particulated the fuel itself, and the fuel itself is splitting atoms. So the fuel is replicating that is out there, which is an enormous amount, is doubling itself each second because it's splitting atoms. So this plume actually had that same attribute, where the plume was full of fuel particulates from the detonations of 36 reactor cores and 8 fuel pools at the top of 4 reactor buildings at the Fukushima Daiichi site. Now, we very well could have lost the common spent fuel pool in Reactor 6, too, because of the 736 mystery pictures that were released in 2021. And you'll find that video on my site. I'm the only guy who's ever come out, unfortunately, and had that conversation with the pictures, right? So the plume, this is 20 days of radioactive fallout in Neptunium, but every 2.5 days, 50% of that turns into plutonium. So do you kind of get what I'm saying to you? So levels consistently rise and fall, but this is a continuous plume covering your whole planet. It's a continuous plume that is covering your entire planet, a continuous plume. So if it was a snowstorm, and then you would get it because it never stops snowing and the snow never melts. Then you'd understand the horror that we're living in, and annihilation that's finding its way through every species because of that. So this is Reactor 4 fuel pool, and that's Reactor 4 over there. The fuel pool is at the top of the building. You can see clearly the building doesn't exist. That section of the building, like the buildings are supposed to be 190 foot, not a stump like that 30, 35 foot stump. There's no. It's so crazy, that the industry was so evil that it had no issues doing this. I have that whole process of Reactor 4, actually. Let me see if I can find that. I got it, but I got so much. Yeah, we'll find it here for you. And just give me a few moments. I apologize for being 15 minutes late tonight. I just doing the best I can. Some days it's a little bit slow. Let's put it that way. Okay, let me try another place, because when you're doing live, it's nice to have everything lined up. It doesn't always work that way for you. Oh, we got a bunch right there. There's one, a lot of you people would know what the picture I'm talking about. It's in multiple places, but it's not. I should find it right here. Well, I have a folder with that whole set of pictures. I'm not on top of it tonight. We'll try for another minute. If I can't find it, well, I'll be very disappointed too. Son of a gun, eh? I for sure had it that time. One more time. Oh, and there's that, that TEPCO picture where they have the whole process of building that contraption on Reactor 4. All right, let's move on. That's usually when I find it, right? Yep. I got no idea. I give up. High radiation forces withdrawal of workers trying to restore power. Like there was nobody trying to restore power, because even if the other reactors didn't blow up, Medusa blew up, Reactor 3.
Radioactive contaminants now moving, which indicate that...
I'm sorry, folks. I didn't realize that particular one had audio. It's not a very good picture either, is it? It's okay. It was a nuclear explosion at Reactor 3. I believe the fuel rods were blown out of the spent fuel pool. was a translation of Reactor 3. You know, another crazy thing about this massive release was they burnt 1 billion pounds of highly radioactive material from the prefecture. This was from year 2012. They built 19 reactors just in Fukushima prefecture that they ran for 4 or 5 years, where that's all they burnt was radioactive debris. They were built, there was like, 150 feet buildings. There was 19 of them spread over Fukushima prefecture just to burn radioactive material. It's the craziest story imaginable, because if they store it, then the nuclear industry doesn't look as good, apparently. That's their line of thought. Right? They're obsessed with never storing anything. They're obsessed with it. And so with that ideology, then they only store a fraction of what should have been stored, or because stuff that's splitting atoms into the environment, like 1,000 fuel pools, is simply unacceptable. It's not tenable. We're going to exterminate the species. We don't need nuclear accidents, and we've had them. So this is where they're shipping radioactive ground-up material across the country to burn in big cities' incinerators. These are absurd, dirty bombs we're talking about. This is absurdness. I don't know. My apologies, I can't keep up with it sometimes. Common spent fuel pool, which was behind Reactor 4 and Reactor 3, right across the street from it. Common spent fuel pool, now being sprayed with water, contains 6,375 spent fuel assemblies. The reactors would have had about half of that, apparently, because they don't have a repository. Let me try this again here. Because they don't have a repository anywhere worldwide, it was common practice, because each reactor building will have 2 fuel pools for the boiling water reactor, one design for sure. The hell did I get done now? Hang on. Click on that, click on this. So, actually, just hang on. Let me find the headlines of the reactor cores, because we don't do that folder enough. There we go. I have cores. Let's go through this one. Wasn't that a meltdown? Might have been the gin. Might have been the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I don't know. Would have been a meltdown. All of the stricken reactors and spent fuel pools contain plutonium, which is, if you know anything about nuclear, you know that's obvious, right? But most people are not aware of that. So at the top of each of the buildings, as I showed you earlier from Frank von Hippel interview on March 16, 2011, there probably could have easily been 8 reactor cores at the top of each of the building, and most likely was more. And the reason being is you don't have a repository anywhere worldwide, and that was the practice to overstuff the fuel pools on top of it. They changed the rules and regulations to accommodate more fuel because they don't have a repository. It would be like Chernobyl on steroids if the spent fuel catches fire. Says a nuclear engineer who worked at an identical plant. Each reactor holds 3,450 spent fuel assemblies, but it's common practice to put double that there. The same thing for the common spent fuel pool. So that's around 6 million pounds. So the common pool holds 6,291 fuel rod assemblies. Each reactor top pool at the top of the buildings holds 3,000. I don't think it's each pool. I think it's the 2 pools at the top of the building. I hope I'm right on that and not wrong. I hope it's not more than that. Which is 3,450 fuel rod assemblies. Each assembly actually holds 100 fuel rods. Each fuel rod is 12 feet long and weighs 18 pounds. They got some of the numbers wrong. They have to be kept submerged in circulating water, not just water, but circulating water. And they can start a chain reaction underwater because they don't need oxygen. Fukushima investigator, within 1 day, complete meltdown, melt-through occurred. That was reactor 1. There was no way the government did not know it. Japan Times, walls are cracked below the ground, as if the damage above wasn't enough. LA Times, speculation, supercritical fission event occurred at Fukushima reactor radiating plutonium, which would have been, I believe would have been, they're alluding to the number 3 reactor, plutonium mixed oxide reactor. Times.com, China syndrome might just have happened at Fukushima. This is May the 16th, 2011. May have melted through everything into the earth. Well, I mean, the explosions, see? The explosions is just a madness. So here's the original picture from the 15th of March 2011. Now, experts that are looking at this picture knows the fuel pool is gone there. They know the fuel pools are gone here, which is around 8 reactor cores per building for each of the buildings. And they know reactor 4. They can just tell that from that picture. It's because it's obvious what had to take place for that kind of damage to occur. There was nothing else that could do it. The top of the buildings didn't have it's crazy, right? But there was connotations. The entire nuclear core injected into the environment. It was 9 reactor cores. The 2 fuel pools were ejected right out of the building. This was blatant in that particular video. We have a video. We don't have a video of reactor 4. It was the worst possible nuclear accident to spend fuel pools. Worse than a meltdown. Worse than a melt through, a melt out. On top of that, all fuel is melted through, much of it into the containment vessel. So where's the rest? Well, it was ejected out of the building, right out of the building. Worst case scenario was a China syndrome. No, the worst case scenario was you ejected 9 reactor cores right out of the building. There was a China syndrome in Reactor 1 and 2 for some of the fuel. More so for Reactor 2, certainly in Reactor 1. Reactor 1 lost its inventory on the 12th, the next day. Because once you cut off circulation, you need 4,500 tons of water a minute on top of that. Once you cut off circulation, it heats up. It's already under 1,000 plus pounds per square inch. So the explosions were pressure explosions, not hydrogen explosions. Whatever the official version is, you need to dissect every sentence over and over before you move on to the next sentence. Because they're going to tell you the opposite. They want to reassure you. They don't want you to. They don't want to have any holes in their story, so the whole story is full of holes. It'll drive you nuts if you don't know how to flush through it. Japan government raised the possibility fuel had melt through in all 3 reactors. They refused to acknowledge Reactor 4. Even today, and right away, Reactor 4 is an angel. Nothing could happen at number 4. Number 4 is like walking in the sunshine where nobody farts. The industry's batshit crazy. They're a threat to humanity and the 8 million species. And they're weirdos on top of that. Oh, that's the wrong one. Well, Reactor 4 is right here. There is no Reactor 4. That's Reactor 3, that's Reactor 4. They're right alongside of each other. And, the original footage, like that here, anybody in the know, any pundits, nuclear pundits for the industry were aware that this didn't exist. They all came out and lied. So all the media came out and pretended that once they'd done that, they couldn't go back, right? Once they pretended that the journalists claimed they were in a fuel pool, they didn't do that on their own. Their producers set that up. Right? That's who should first go to jail eventually. We need to put them in jail. We can't put them in a jail. And they're dead. We need to dig them up and put their corpse in jail. That's how egregious of a crime that was. Should producers be in jail who made journalists look like they are at the Fukushima Reactor 4 fuel pool? And you got to realize how many times we've had that type of poll. So I'd jazz it up a little bit tonight for everybody. So the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs, where they use seawater to cool the reactors in the enormous temperatures, liberated the sulfur and becomes a spherical ball that is able to ingest the curium isotopes, the plutonium, americiums, and neptuniums, and everything. And these are very mobile. These are so-called sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs. This is an effect they knew from the ocean contamination when they were detonating in the ocean. The peroxides formed by seawater is a curse now on humanity forever. They're super hot particles, right? There's 1,000 kinds of isotopes on top of that. There is no containment. Times.com report, triple meltdown says it's not great, but not apocalyptic news. Really? What is it then? After Chernobyl, they closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. 3,000 kilometers away. Apparently it's not like a banana or a potato chip or walking in sunshine. Authorities hid the radioactive plume forecast to avoid evacuation, officials reveal. Mayor says is akin to murder. What we face is a great unknown to all of mankind. 10 sieverts an hour. 3 sieverts will melt your organs after 10 or 15 minutes. 10 sieverts like a sniper round. Outside of Reactor 2, which is right between Reactor 1 and 3, was 1 million sieverts per hour, they estimated, originally. What kind of dose is that? How long does that take to kill you? Like a half a second, 2 seconds? For them literally liquefy your organs. So that's the kind of energy we're talking about, liquefying your organs in just a couple of minutes. You'll squat down and excrete them, and you'll just die right there. You either fall over like Nagasaki, Hiroshima. Lots of people were found squat down with their pants to their knees, and they had excreted their organs. They were in that squatting position. Some of them were found in that position, dead as a doornail, because they melted their organs. Map shows Fukushima fallout in the United States. Radiation dose in the Northeast and the Great Lakes, the third biggest aquifer on the entire planet, equal to the West Coast. You know, this is the Daini plant. This is not Fukushima plant. Halt children's return to Fukushima. This was a special envoy for UN. Japan should not push residents back to Fukushima, says UN expert. We usually play that video, but not tonight. Fukushima sake shop opens in New York. If they can't get you to go there, they'll send it to you. The Fukushima government, not some businesses from Fukushima, but the Fukushima government has opened a sake shop in New York with over, 11 million people, specializing in radioactive brew from the nuclear wasteland, from the Fukushima prefecture nuclear wasteland. How did we ever become that complacent that was able to happen? This is a pretty old story too. We covered it originally, so I can't remember what year it was, but it's a long time ago, 9 years ago probably. Many of the 42 entities tossed out records from the 2011 quake these are the communities that were abandoned. Right? Municipalities, Iwate, Miyagi, Fukushima prefectures, reported throwing out the records because there was no rules on their preservation. Cardboard boxes containing official documents related to the earthquake and the tsunami are temporarily kept at elementary schools in the nuclear wasteland of Nami, Fukushima prefecture. But they got rid of them because there was no rules to keep them. So they said, well, let's just throw them away. All prime ministers of Japan have to go to Fukushima and kiss the nuclear ring, pretend that everything is okay. Cardboard boxes containing official documents related to the earthquake and tsunami. Now, they built a $50 million museum in Nami. And this is Nami. They didn't bother putting these records in the museum. They threw them away. They kept pieces of fire trucks and stuff, 150 objects, but they wouldn't keep the records of Fukushima. The documents have already been discharged, including notifications from the central government and a list of names of volunteers who worked at Fukushima. As for why they disposed of the documents, the Jaigo city of Miyagi prefecture said the preservation period expired. Stupid. And we don't have space to preserve all those documents. Now you got a museum with 150,000 objects. I'm sure they could have made room for the records of all the volunteers. Oh, too bad, too late. Why would you throw that away? We don't have space to provide the documents, but they built, what year is this? 2019. Isn't that the year they built the museum? Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, the whole world's sleepwalking in the nuclear industry, and the nuclear industry made it that way. Like, what blows my mind, though, is they've been poisoning you since day one. They've been dumping it into the oceans as long as we can remember. The evidence is overwhelming. It's everywhere. Anybody that looks a little tiny bit deeper, they're going to find the madness. Every country was doing it. They're dumping it into the ocean. Oh, it's just nuclear waste. Like, they wouldn't be on that boat if they understood what was in the barrels. You wouldn't drag them onto that boat. People are an interesting bunch. It's in some cultures, right? Fukushima residents visit the family graves. This was year 7 or year 8. But behind them is thousands of one-ton bags of brutal radiation. So let the families go back to visit their loved ones in a nuclear wasteland because they were pestering them, right? They wanted them to give it up and leave them alone. So they say, yeah, go on back. Get sick and friggin' die. So they don't understand. They were just grieving because they couldn't mourn their lost ones, their loved ones properly. And so they made a fatal mistake. They went back into a nuclear wasteland, and the government, the journalists, the producers of the media that have tricked and deceived and manipulated them their entire life. Most people grow up, most kids are growing up on SpongeBob. Right, then they're going to keep watching it for the rest of their life, buying T-shirts and all kinds of stupid shit to support that propaganda of the nuclear industry, that the Bikini Atolls is somehow justified, the species are okay, etc., etc. That's what that's all about. And indoctrination, the beginning of the indoctrination for children. The ultimate betrayal to a child is to allow them to watch SpongeBob and The Simpsons and let them believe the fantasy of Spider-Man and the Hulk. Why not? You got the Easter Bunny. You know what I mean, right? So it's not a far stretch to be so complacent as to let the child watch. Then the child grows up and gets jobs like this in a paper suit, spraying regions at a nuclear meltdown. They die that day, those people. These people are dead that day, that hour, most likely, right? They're in there spraying this reagent in the disposable suits because the industry has no respect for humans. These people died that day. You could never get a nuclear scientist, nuclear academic, even a nuclear student. Be like, no, come on, we'll give you a couple $1,000 cash right here. No way. They'd be like, you guys are crazy. Well, actually, they'd be peeing their pants. That's the interesting, the bizarre thing with the nuclear industry. There's nobody in the nuclear industry, like the propaganda machine, that actually has a gram of integrity. That, you know, if they were out, say it was a male and he's out to a restaurant and he got his wife there with him and somebody insults his wife, he's the guy who will pee his pants and call his mommy or something and say, can you come down? Somebody insulted my wife. They lack that. They don't have an image. It's so interesting. Like Stinkfoot, Phil Mason. That's his brother, the shoe bomber. It's hard to tell the difference, right? And Phil Mason is a terrorist. Make no mistake about it. What he's doing and done, to many people, including me, is terrorism. He knows better. Oh, here's the picture I was looking for. Reactor 4. So you see the beginning up top, number 2, number 3, and then over on the far left is number 4, number 5, and now finally, number 6. Okay, everything better. Have a nice day. Small modular reactors right around the corner. We love you long time, love you long time. It's pretty bizarre, isn't it? Well, like, the way you're targeted by the industry, you're targeted for extermination, right? I don't care about anybody or anything. So the kids are growing up showing this depiction. Alpha is a superhero, got a cape, right? Beta's a superhero, Gamma's a superhero. See the poses? It's a slippery slope to just to stand back and let this play out. There's no good ending to that story. You got to abandon your supermarkets, your hospitals, your communities, your graveyards, your schools, your malls, your banks, your police stations, your hospitals. Because it's not like a banana, it really isn't. This is a fun one. So, this was really early, and this was behind the tarp of the Fukushima 50. They wanted to be left alone. And the journalists, this was the final time journalists took pictures, tried to get interviews or pictures of the Fukushima 50. And what was interesting about this was the Fukushima 50 are dressed exactly like these people. So there's no reason for a tarp because journalists would know who's a Fukushima 50, who's not, right? And even this was the beginning of never questioning or talking about Fukushima 50 again. There's a Fukushima 50 every few hours at Fukushima. They were jacking people off the street just like Chernobyl. People fell for that, right? Called them here, guys behind the tarps hero, but they're dressed the same as everybody else. So you didn't need tarps. And there is no Fukushima 50. That was one of the biggest lies we've ever been manipulated with. I don't know, ramblings of an old man. Just censor me and it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. As long as they censor any opposition, there can never be a conversation. The industry can't survive a conversation, right? It's the death of the industry would be to have a debate with anybody that was even remotely articulating. This was a fun one. If you're within 10-mile radius of a nuclear power plant, doesn't matter which one, you can get free iodine pills that are good for several years. You're meant to keep them in a special place. So if there's a problem at the nuclear plant, you can take them and be safe. That's what they're told, right? It doesn't work that way. Like, you have to take it 24, 48 hours before there's any releases. And it's just for iodine. So any gammas like cesium will still end up in your thyroid gland. It doesn't have to be in your thyroid gland to destroy your thyroid gland, because like cesium-137 pulses energy 600 feet. It doesn't have to be in your body to destroy your thyroid. It's on your property or in your hair or on your community or outside your house or across the street. It's simply not true that it has any benefits whatsoever by giving pills out in the community. There is no benefit to that. The benefit is to the nuclear industry that you don't run away. And the benefits to the pharmaceutical companies that you'll be addicted to because, like you'll get radiation sickness. You got to go away and abandon your communities, leave your pets and animals behind, let them die, starve to death, die of thirst. All of a sudden, the nuclear industry doesn't get a black eye. It's better that everybody sacrifices something so the nuclear industry remains elusive to people's perception of truth. They scrub everything from the planet. Any dissenting voices are immediately hacked and attacked and demonized and vilified and smeared. And it's perpetual, it's forever. Once they identify you, you're the enemy. And they have enormous resources to set after you. And they're 100% on the ball. They don't hesitate to destroy anybody and everybody at a drop of a hat. If you're considered a threat to the nuclear industry, you're a threat to the nuclear industry. Enormous resources are mobilized permanently against you. There's a budget to attack you every day now for the rest of your life. Done pretty good. We made it. Almost through the night. A bit of a struggle. Some nights are like that, right? Okay, well, let's wind her down. James had put out a really interesting video today, a few hours ago. We're going to play that tonight. And the NRC is bullied as the bottleneck. Now, he's got a couple of links below it. One to the NRC YouTube page, and another to a PDF file for his, I'm assuming for his motivation. NRC bullied as the bottleneck. So allegedly the NRC has so many rules the nuclear industry can't get anything accomplished. So Trump's administration, the nuclear industry, were the bullies, right? Bullied away into that administration each time certain entities to give to industry. The industry's been given all the money it's ever wanted. All the talent from all the major shakers and movers and universities, all the precious metals. It's been given a pair of scissors to cut through every piece of red tape out there. Still can't. It's still at the same gigawatts as it was in the early 90s. There is no nuclear renaissance. In the last 3 years, counting this year, we're looking at almost 2,000 gigawatts of solar coming online in just 36 months, which is almost half, well, it's over half of the total capacity used worldwide continuously each day. which is 3,336 or so gigawatts of electricity, is currently active every minute worldwide, total capacity. But in just solar, right, it's over 50% of that, I would imagine, by the time the end of the year, by January we'll have the statistics. We're only talking solar, we're not talking wind, we're not talking anything else. Just solar. And there's a lot of storage. Now, Canada just announced $20+ billion for the Pickering, Ontario nuclear power plant. They're going to renew it, they're going to rebuild everything. 2 years ago, they closed 764 wind and solar farms in order so they can have a nuclear renaissance, because there was a renewable renaissance, and they had $5.4 billion allocated to them for storage, and that would have been the end of nuclear. So they took all the subsidies away that they were dependent upon for 764 solar wind farms in Ontario, Canada, and then gave the $5.4 billion for the storage for the renewable industry, which would have been a proof of concept 24-hour energy supply, and gave that money to Bruce Power, a nuclear power plant, which was going to build a compressed or pumped hydro storage, which is water. So they looted the renewables section here in Canada so that the nuclear industry still can't get it together. And that the small modular reactor they're allegedly going to build here in Canada is a 240-foot building. It's a skyscraper, it's a 24-story building with only 300 gigawatts. It's 50 feet taller than the massive gigawatt Fukushima reactors. So it's not small. In other words, they don't have a small modular reactor design worldwide. They use that and they invoke those connotations, but that's not what the reactors are. They're massive, and they're small in the capacity, but they're bigger than the largest reactors we have out there. So NRC bullied as the bottleneck is not true. They're just trying to lift the regulations. So there's no regulation. So they can do whatever they want, wherever they want, whenever they want, and they don't want to be bothered by anybody. I think, to me, it's just another stall tactic. They're saying that's the reason they don't have a small modular reactor, because there's too many rules, too many regulations, too many this, too many that, and that the emissions are harmless and innocuous and benign. But it's simply, none of that is true. They've been given a pass, and whatever they want. All the precious metals, all the talent from all the major universities, shakers and movers, they've given everything they ever wanted. All the land, the prime real estate, the water, you name it, they've been given it, and they destroyed it nonstop since their existence. And so they're trying to, this is, the NRC bullied as the bottleneck is a connotation of just them trying to justify to their friends and families and everybody else. It's not their fault, it's the NRC. The NRC is their best friend. Only the NRC has the authority to make it illegal to poison you with radiation. They've never done it. Every administration appoints new people for that position, right? For that 4-year administration. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm not my perky, cheery self tonight. I am, but I'm just tired. It's no big deal. We'll make it back tomorrow night. Try to finish off a week. Just a good week. Great videos with absurd censorship against me. I didn't have the audio on. My apologies. Yeah, it's off. See everybody on the next show. Get over there and give James some love and give him a thumbs up. And I already got him in my playlist from before the show tonight. I meant to leave a comment, but I was trying to get the show up and running because I'm a moron. I couldn't get it together. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. See everybody on the next show. Take care.
pressure field forms over the district, moving through structures where choices collect. Mechanical unease turns beneath the agency, revealing one profile. A steward built for caution, encircled by speed. Directional pressure moves from private boardrooms into the agency with practiced intent. A phrase repeats in embedded bursts. Do not be the bottleneck. Approval packets, cross clearance desk stacked with triso fuel claims. Carbon-bound particles held as lasting shields for units far from reach or witness. Across the red concerns tilt the spectrum as mandate force settles on a bureau built for restraint. A low resonance settles beneath the fixtures born where duty meets command. Monitors hold procedural calm, yet the emotional field turns uneven. Not fear, only the fold of withheld objection, pressed into records that cannot respond. Bullied as the bottleneck, pressed to clear the route for triso fuel. Promise barriers presented as perfect armor, pushed to approve a lattice no one proves. NRC bullied as the bottleneck, their caution marked as slowing the field. The instruments return a bare result, a guardian pushed toward an untested core. Long-range readings outline the promotional profile. Triso fuel routed to remote installations. Micro-reactor stationed under polar auroras, unattended, unchallenged, wrapped in engineered certainty. The emotional register drops along a stress contour. As staff absorb pressure to endorse the unproven. Tasked to approve tomorrow's hazards, with frameworks shaped for another era. Administrative voices settle into practice, delivers the field, tightens around unspoken concerns. The system records only procedure, the emotional layer notes something else. Subdued grief for the safety room, renamed inefficiency. NRC bullied as the bottleneck, a reading the system cannot mute. Their vigilance recast as obstruction, their hesitation rewritten as resistance. NRC bullied as the bottleneck, called a barrier by those selling triso fuel ambition, yet unable to halt the push behind it. The agency remains the last gate in name only, its role reduced to permitting the inevitable.